Good afternoon, I'm Shane Masters with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Another record in COVID-19 deaths. 15 more Jamaicans have died from the respiratory illness. These include 4 from Kingston and St. Andrew, 3 from St. Thomas, 2 from Portland, 1 each from Westmoreland, St. Anne, Trelawney, St. Catherine, Hanover and St. Elizabeth. 3 of the cases were previously under investigation. Now, this brings the death toll to 646. Meanwhile, 447 people have been hospitalized due to the respiratory illness. Of that, 49 are critically ill, while 36 are moderately ill. This is an increase of 30 from Tuesday, where 417 cases were reported. In the meantime, 204 new cases of the coronavirus were recorded on Wednesday from 659 tests. The number of confirmed cases now stands at 41,604. Kingston and St. Andrew recorded most of the new cases with 58, followed by St. James with 36 and St. Catherine with 28. Meanwhile, there are 22,103 active cases. The Health Ministry is hoping to get back the results of further tests for COVID-19 variants in the population in another week. Last month, Dr. Christopher Tufton confirmed the presence of the highly contagious UK variant after 7 of the samples sent for testing came back positive. However, he says more samples have since been sent to the Trinidad-based Caribbean Public Health Agency for testing.
We sent most recently, I think, 50 samples to test. The process is quite lengthy. There has to be some genetic sequencing, and apparently it takes some time. And we can only therefore wait on them to return the results.
Professor of Public Health and Epidemiology Peter Figueroa says there is treatment to avoid death from rare blood clots reportedly caused by the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. He, however, says the treatment is more effective if the blood clots are detected earlier. The Safety Committee of the European Medicines Agency yesterday said the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine can cause unusual blood clots. There had been 18 deaths reported in its review of 62 cases of blood clots. Jamaica's Ministry of Health has been administering the AstraZeneca vaccine in its inoculation program. Professor Figueroa says the overall risk is low.
Once it is recognized early, it can be treated effectively. But the wording of the different safety committees varies a little bit. The European Medicine Agency is seeing it as a very rare side effect, and the Global Vaccine Safety Committee of WHO used the wording that it's a possibly associated. I think, it's reasonable to say this is likely to be associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine as a very rare side effect.
Professor Figueroa, who was speaking today on the Morning Agenda on Power 106 FM, says the benefits of getting the jab outweigh the risk, especially among the older population.
Because most younger people are likely to get a mild disease with COVID, whereas older persons who get the disease are much more at risk of getting severe COVID and requiring hospitalization, of developing blood clots due to the COVID itself, and even dying, because this is a disease that affects older persons much more seriously than younger persons.
Vaccination appointments have started for persons aged 60 years and older. Staff members from the Department of Correctional Services, Jamaica Fire Brigade, PICA and Jamaica Customs, tourism workers, and teachers and other employees of educational institutions. The Ministry of Health says the appointment started at 10 o'clock. In a media release, the Health Ministry said persons 60 years and older should register using the online portal on the ministry's website at moh.gov.jm or by calling the National Vaccination Hotline at 888-663-5683. Members of the other priority groups will be registered through their respective organizations. The ticketing system for breaches of COVID-19 protocols is set to come on stream this month. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck made the disclosure last night in an interview with our news center. Mr. Chuck said arrangements for the effective implementation of the system are being finalized. The process involves Tax Administration Jamaica TAJ, the courts, and the police.
So that once a payment is made, say at the tax office, then it is registered with the police. And also, if it is not paid within the given time, then the ticket serves as a summons to go to the court. And the court would then collect the payment. And once it is paid there, then it is also notified by a TAJ and Ellison Road, just like the traffic tickets themselves. So what is happening is a proper coding system is now being worked out between TAJ, the court, and the police, so that it can work smoothly and overcome many of the challenges that we had with the traffic tickets.
The Justice Minister told our news center that amendments to the Disaster Risk Management Act, recently approved by Parliament, are now in effect.
And the police can arrest and enforce the provisions of the DMA, so that persons who fail to comply with the protocols must appreciate that they could be charged under the Act. So that the idea of the ticketing system is to make it easier so that the courts are not overburdened with persons having to go there in the event that they fail to pay.
There will be a $5,000 fine for not wearing a mask in public and $10,000 for breaking the curfew. The fine for unlawful church services and funerals will be $100,000. And for hotels, they could face a charge of up to $500,000 for breaches. More COVID-19 vaccines are set to reach the island before this weekend. That's according to Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton. But scammers may use that information to cause greater harm than good. Codian Barrett reports.
As the COVID-19 vaccine brings hope for many, it has been brought to the public's attention that scammers are wasting no time trying to cash in. Chairman of the National Health Fund, Howard Mitchell, says fraudsters are trying to get them to sign a contract with the false hope of being able to supply vaccines.
We can get you 2 million vaccines at X price, usually a price which is multiples of the manufacturer's price. Yeah. And all you have to do is either send us a deposit or you have to pay the 100% up front and we will deliver to you.
According to Mr. Mitchell, some of the companies which have approached them are registered companies here in Jamaica as well as overseas.
They will say, look, you can't deal with anybody else. The contract will have an exclusivity clause in there. Can't deal with anybody else for this vaccine other than us. And that limits your options. And they, in the hope that they will get vaccines at a point in time, they lock you out legally of dealing with the manufacturer. So we have to be very diligent in avoiding these traps.
Mr. Mitchell believes that the gap between supply and demand for the product creates the opportunity for persons to take advantage of the situation.
In the case of the United States, there are 500 million vaccines for a population of 330. In the case of Canada, 3 times their population. Some countries then say, look, we're not taking the vaccine, we're not taking it again. And the financiers, in an effort to get their money back, will then job it out or allocate it out to other parties who have connections.
It's for that reason Mr. Mitchell is strongly suggesting that persons be on the lookout for these activities.
We're struggling to find, the smaller countries are struggling to find vaccines. So we can't ignore them. But the point is that we have to be very, very careful who we deal with.
Codian Barrett, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back. Continuing the news. Social research consultant Carol Watson-Williams is calling for amendments to be made to the Zones of Special Operations Bill. This as part of efforts to protect women and girls from high levels of sexual harassment from the security forces in the zones. Sandra Williams has the details.
Jamaica's sexual harassment bill currently focuses on harassment within organizations. Therefore, not much protection against harassment outside organizations exists, especially for females. The recent spate of gender-based violence across the country has prompted the authorities to take steps to protect women and girls from violence, including sexual harassment and exploitation, especially from members of the security forces. Social research consultant with the United Nations Development Program, Carol Watson-Williams, says there have been reports of high sexual harassment by the police from females living in high-crime communities.
We know that research done by Dr. Herbert Gale and the Violence Prevention Alliance, we know from that research that women in high-crime communities have said that while they feel safer with the police presence in their neighborhoods, they're disturbed by the high levels of sexual harassment by the police.
It is against this background that Mrs. Watson-Williams is calling for the Zones of Special Operations Bill to be amended.
So we're recommending changes to Section 8, subsection 2 of the Act, which sets out the qualifications of members of the Joint Command. Under that section, in addition to their training as members of the JDF and JCF, the Act requires that they have training in human rights, the use of force, and community development initiatives. It is our submission that that section be amended to require that the Joint Command and Joint Forces have training in the prevention and mitigation of sexual exploitation and abuse and sexual harassment.
She also wants the training to be a requirement for the deployment of members of the security forces in the zones of special operations. As it is now, the bill requires each zone to maintain a written accountability and reporting system, and so
we're recommending that this system should include data on any reports of sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment by the joint forces.
She was speaking during Wednesday's sitting of a parliamentary committee reviewing the ZOSO legislation. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
5 months after the announcement of a 90-day amnesty for residents of Bulba in St. Andrew, it is still yet to come to fruition. Mayor of Kingston, Delroy Williams, had announced the amnesty following a number of landslides across the corporate area and the death of a father and daughter in Shooters Hill, St. Andrew. Heavy rains and landslides in November last year left a number of communities inundated. It also left one family in mourning following a landslide which claimed the lives of 42-year-old Romeo Leachman and his 15-year-old daughter in Shooters Hill. Prime Minister Andrew Holness a month earlier had said the government will be looking into declaring areas prone to severe flooding and landslides as no-build zones. Mr. Holness in Parliament on October 27 said the government will have to put policies in place to prevent people from building houses in unsafe areas. But following that announcement, tragedy struck. It led to Mayor of Kingston, Delroy Williams, making this announcement.
The municipality is considering granting a 90-day amnesty to allow persons who have built without the necessary building approval or the building permit to allow them to regularize their structures. We would not charge the penalty fees. We would discount heavily the application fee, the building application fees.
In providing an update today, Mayor Williams sought to explain the delay in the amnesty.
It's just that we are doing our local area sustainable development plan. We are collecting data in the area right now.
But Mayor Williams, it is 5 months from when the incident occurred.
I noted something, and implementing it takes time with government. You don't expect us, when we announce that we are pursuing something, that it's going to be implemented immediately. So an announcement that you're going to do something, we never did say to anyone that it will be implemented immediately. We did signal that we are going this direction. We had already started our local area development plan, data collection for that. So that is we are basically just awaiting the completion of that before we move forward.
Now, with the hurricane season approximately 2 months away, the mayor says he's hopeful people will take up the amnesty when it comes into effect.
Well, we do hope that persons will take it up when it is rolled out. As to the time that it will be rolled out, I don't want to say to you, I don't want to give the time. There are some information that we are awaiting, and I don't want to issue anything time-related until we have completed that.
The Early Childhood Commission, ECC, says by the end of the week, it should be able to provide an update on the investigation into the beating of a 2-year-old boy at a daycare center in Falmouth, Trelawney. The incident reportedly took place a month ago. Communications manager at the ECC, Monique Price, told TVJ News that an inspector was assigned to conduct a probe.
We're now awaiting the report, and that is usually submitted within 48 hours, depending on the circumstances.
So do you expect to receive the report by tomorrow?
I would say so, if all goes according to plan. If we're able to locate all the persons involved and do a thorough investigation, if we're able to complete with the facts, we should be able to get it, but if not, we hope soonest.
Ms. Price outlined what action could be taken against the operator of the daycare center if there is confirmation that corporal punishment was used to discipline the child.
If we find that there was a breach, the early childhood institution, first of all, their certificate of registration, if they have one, can be suspended or cancelled. Also, if they have a permit to operate, that can be cancelled or suspended as well. The outcome of the investigations will identify, if necessary, what actions are to be taken.
The man who threatened a woman in a telephone conversation on Tuesday, March 30, that went viral, has been charged. 46-year-old Peter May, a farmer of Heartlands District in St. Catherine, has been charged with malicious communication and preventing a person from buying or selling. According to reports, about 8:20 p.m., Mr. May called the woman, who is a vendor at the Otrius Market, via phone and made several threats to kill her. She became fearful for her life and as a result had to stop from going to the market. The police were alerted and they carried out a detailed investigation which resulted in the woman being located and Mr. May being arrested last week, Saturday. He was subsequently charged yesterday. His court date is being finalized. 2 people are now nursing injuries following a motor vehicle accident on the Gutters Main Road in St. Elizabeth this morning. The incident happened around 4 a.m. It's understood that a truck transporting water and other beverages down Spurtree Hill collided with a car traveling in the opposite direction. The car overturned into a ditch. The driver and an occupant of the truck were taken to hospital. Their condition is not yet known. In sports, Jamaica's track and field fraternity has been spared another blemish with news that the young athlete who returned an anti-doping rule violation in February has been cleared of any wrongdoing by the independent anti-doping disciplinary panel. Kian Rayner reports.
Just over 6 weeks after J3A's president Garth Gale told TVJ Sports that an athlete had been flagged by the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission for an adverse analytical finding, stakeholders of Jamaica's track and field can breathe easier with the news that the local athlete has been cleared. TVJ Sports sources have revealed that the youngster, whose name has not been disclosed, was cleared at an in-camera hearing on Tuesday, April 6, where their attorneys, Dr. Lloyd Barnett and Gard McGrath, made a no-case submission before the independent anti-doping disciplinary panel. Dr. Barnett revealed that the quantity of the banned substance Zeranol, which was found in the athlete's urine sample, was at a level in keeping with contaminated meat, as per a water technical report which took effect on the 1st of January 2021. The veteran attorney confirmed with the TVJ Sports that the independent panel, which was chaired by Queen's Counsel Georgia Gibson Henlin, accepted their reasons and dismissed the case. Quote, "The panel found that looking at the report and the findings, they were of the view that the charge could not be sustained," end quote. The other members of the panel were Japheth Ford and Dean Martin. Our own checks of Ward's technical letter addressed to accredited laboratories in December 2020 showed that findings of Zeranol and its metabolites in urine samples could be related to the consumption of mycotoxin contaminated food. When contacted by telephone on Wednesday, both JADCO's chairman Alexander Williams and J3A's president Garth Gale declined to comment on the matter. Keon Rayner reporting for TVJ Sports.
And that's the midday news. I'm Shane Masters. Join us at 7 for primetime news On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.